Hi everybody, welcome back. This tutorial will be split into three parts and it's all going to be covering various different ways to optimize your images for your website. Optimizing your images being one of the simplest and quickest and probably one of the most effective ways you can really speed up your website. So as a whole tutorial, it's going to be taking place in three parts. The first is going to be detailing the best practice, which is to optimize images as you go, making sure that every time you upload an image to your WordPress site, it's the right size or as near as possible to the right size. And then obviously that's best practice, so moving forwards you're never going to have to backtrack and go through a lot of images and fix them up, which is time consuming and boring and unnecessary. But sadly it is necessary for this tutorial, because the second part of the tutorial is going to be about how, if you do have images on your site, it's about how we're going to go back, how we're going to find out where the problem images are and what we're going to do to them to re-optimize them. And then the third and final part of this tutorial is going to be dealing with cheap and easy fixes, or little bits of housekeeping, which are basically undertaken by a couple of different plugins, one called Smush It, the other called Imsamity, but we'll get back to those towards the end of the tutorial. Should be said, you don't want to rely on plugins for this. It should be very much as just a cheap and easy fix. Okay, so moving on with the first tutorial, the best way to optimize your images is as you go, and that's what we're going to find out how to do this now. So this is going to be the page that we're going to be working with, and this right here, excuse my ugly mug, but that's not why this is here. This is here to say this is why you don't want to put big images on your site. That was all downloading time. And the reason that that was downloading so slowly is because it's not just downloading this size picture, it's actually downloading this size picture, which is the original file size. So what your server's having to do is it's having to download that size picture, and then WordPress is then coming in and it's squashing that picture down for you to be able to fit onto your own site, which is a lot of more work for your server to do. It uses up bandwidth and obviously increases your load time. That's exactly what we don't want. We're going to get more into how we can re-optimize these images. This is the same. This is a really large image. Doesn't need to be that large. No chance. So this is, I've digressed slightly, but this in the second part is what we're going to be looking at fixing. For now, I'm just going to put an image in here, and it's going to be perfectly well optimized. Nice quick loading, simple image, and it's just going to be a small one, just more like what we would have over here. So I'm going to want it around about 300 pixels wide, just to keep in with the theme. Now if you're wondering how many pixels you want, you can always click on an image and then you can go view image info, and then down here it will tell you the dimensions. So that's what I'm looking for, around about 300 pixels wide. Now anyway, if we go back to this post, and we're going to be, we can get rid of this now, going to be editing this post, so I'm going to just have to log into WordPress quickly. Okay, so I'm in the WordPress editor, the visual editor, and you can see how big these pictures are. They're ridiculous, completely unnecessary. I'm just going to leave that there for a second, and now the next process is to go over and find the image that we want to upload. We're going to use this image, which is just a uncopyrighted image I've taken from the internet of old mate Albert Einstein. Now initially the size was 599 kilobytes. Now that's still, it's quite small for the size of the image, but it's still way too big, so we want to try and reduce that as much as we possibly can. And we can start by reducing the dimensions. Now remember, we said we wanted 300 across the top, 300 pixels, so that's what we're going to go and do. So in your editor, it doesn't need to be Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, I thoroughly recommend downloading GIMP, which does all of the stuff that Photoshop does really at a basic level. I mean, if you're a graphic designer, then you're probably going to be using Photoshop, but I'm not, and I know a lot of people that get on well with GIMP. So download that, Windows or Mac. The interface and the tools are very similar to Photoshop, so what you will see in here is very applicable to what you'll find in GIMP, and it's free, so don't stress out. Get on GIMP if you don't get on Photoshop, and then just follow along. So this is our image. We've gone in here. We're now going to select image size, and then constrain the styles. We want all this to stay the same. Resolution is very high, but for now we're just going to take this width to 300. It'll automatically change the height for us because we've got constrained portions, and we OK it. Now what we've got there is perfectly well sized picture. That's only 110k at this stage, so that's already what, a 1/5 reduction or a 4/5 reduction. Sorry, my maths isn't brilliant, but that's 1/5 of what it was before, whichever way you want to frame it. We then come down to Save for Web, and this is where you get some really good reduction in here. Now up here, original, optimized, 2-up and 4-up. I like to have this 4-up selected. It basically gives you 4 options of the same picture that you can choose one for. You can fine tune over here if you want to, but what you do want to have selected is progressive and convert to sRGB. Bicubic sharpener is best for reduction, so make sure that's on. And if you want to see what any one of these looks like on the web, you can just click on it. I'm going to probably go for this one for my blog. That's just 8.325k. I mean that's tiny. This here down here tells you this is 2 seconds to download at 56.6 kilobytes per second. Now obviously these are all your different things, so don't take too much notice of this, but it's a reasonably good benchmark. So we're going to preview this to see what it looks like when it's online. That's alright for me. I don't want anything too special from it. Obviously if you're doing a photography blog or something, you might be slightly different kind of rules you're going to apply, but we're not going to go into those here. So I'm happy with that. So I've decided I'm going to save that one. I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it OP Einstein. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it op image. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I'm going to select desktop, call it OC Einstein. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it op images, and I'm going to create it. Okay, so that's it. That's nice and easy for me, and I'm going to save it. So that image is now saved. It's reduced nicely. It's still looking okay, and now I'm going to upload it to my site. So I go back to my post, try and find some of the text in between these two massive pictures, select where I want to put it, and then add media. And then I just need to upload the file. There we go, images, Einstein, 300, there we go, that's lovely. Open, and that's uploaded nice and quick. Now, so if you are going to SEO your site, this is the time to do your images, get your alt tags in, get your description in there. We're not going to do that for this post, it's unnecessary, but it's good practice also to SEO your site with your images as you go. Now here we can select the size of the image now, but because we've already optimized it for the size we want, we can happily select full size. That tells us what this is, and just click away, insert into post. There he is, sitting there looking at us. Now he should be, I want him aligned right. I think I did that anyway, but if you want to check your alignment, you can just click in here add your alignment here. I wanted them aligned right anyway, so that's all good. Update that, update my post. And let's have a look at it, shall we? Good old Einstein's doing. Lovely, there he is, exactly where we wanted him. And he's the same size, so it's perfectly well scaled, and that looks absolutely fine. Image quality, and you know, the image is 8.38 kilobytes as opposed to, excuse me, for example 1.5 meg, you know. So obviously that's going to load far quicker, and Google will be far happier with you. You know, great. Okay, so that's the end of section 1. That's your best practice. That's what you want to do with each and every image. You want to make sure they're well scaled, well optimized, popped into your post. Second section we'll look about going into these large monstrosities that are on your site, slowing everything down, how to locate them, and then how to shrink them and then reload them up to your site. It's very much the same process as what we've just gone through, but you need to identify them first and then get them on your site nice and quickly. Great, guys, so that's the end of the first one. Thanks very much. Just crack on to the second one, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheers.